Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor, my pleasure to speak here. First, as a retired professor, to speak once again in such an illustrious house, and secondly, as former president of the ICC, to speak about the evolution. I was not present at the beginning of the court. I would really to insist upon that, even if I'm the eldest, but I will try to show the evolution what I've seen personally, so mainly the 20 last years. And I will do it, of course, in two-part and two sub-part. How could it be different in such a house? It will be short, of course, because we know that time is accelerating. I have 8 minutes to cover theoretically 100 years. I will nevertheless try to go forward with two main topics. The first will be the question of the evolution of the function and the role of the court. And secondly, I will try to have a look on the evolution of the structure and composition of the court, because I think both things are, of course, intertwined. Starting with the role of the court, I think we should here clearly distinguish between the role of the court in the administration of a case, that is the original role, and then the role that the court has played in the evolution of arbitration. Starting with the administration of the cases, we know, and we've heard it, that originally the idea was to have a body that assists arbitrators, counsels, parties to facilitate the organization of the procedure. Clearly, it was decided that this court, misnamed court, it's not a court, will not have the right to decide on the substance. And nevertheless, this assistance provided for was very important, and it was aimed in particular to avoid to the parties to go before the juge d'appui and have a lengthy procedure. And it was really the idea to facilitate, to accelerate, to improve the procedure. I think there is nevertheless, 3 points probably where it was important to have this impact. It was with the nomination and challenges and control of arbitrators. Secondly, scrutinizing and approval of process, of award. And thirdly, the question of the administration of the financial side, which is, of course, always very important. What happened seemed to me that there is a clear evolution, and this evolution shows that the court has gained more and more power in the procedure. Starting with the nomination of the challenging of the arbitrators, if I may, with due respect, find that what you said was, of course, right, but 25% of arbitrators appointed by the court, it's not a small number. It is already quite an important number, especially in a system whose essence it is that the parties have the right to appoint their own arbitrators. So the role of the institution is great. In my time, it was, I think, 75% of the sole arbitrators were appointed by the court. Probably may have changed right now, but 75%, it's quite a lot, and also for chairman. I do not criticize this at all. I'm just stating that it is an important role, and if we speak to challenges, it is essential for the administration of the court, of the case. Secondly, concerning the scrutinizing process, I had a look in the statistic. It's interesting to note that in my time, if I may speak so, 2004, approximately 26% of the award, I think 93 out of 356, were approved without any comment. 2020, 4 out of 560 or something like that, less than 1%. What does it change? There are several reasons, I know that. In particular, the checklist, for instance, or also the fact that the secretary has less opportunity to speak before the scrutinizing process, but nevertheless, it shows a role of the court. I'm not criticizing, I'm just stating that it is the fact that the role that the court indeed plays a role, is an actor in the system and not just somebody who is outside and trying to assist. it is important to have it in mind when we look at, in particular, at the composition and the structure of the court. That's my first point. My second point, what is the role of the ICC in the general evolution of arbitration? It is extremely important, and I don't want to give a wrong negative image. I think it is an excellent evolution. Nevertheless, there are things that we have to keep in mind. First, I think it's good to have now a sort of case law. It's good. Transparency, publication, I'm very much in favor of it, because in particular it avoids to this impression that the court decide without having a clear politic. On the contrary, we have, I don't know, the last statistic, 25,000 cases. There is a coherence. There is really jurisprudence, and that's good. But this has clearly influenced also the general evolution of arbitration worldwide. The court had the right also to modify rules. Interestingly, Daviana a moment ago said the ICC court decided to change the rules. It's not the ICC court, it is the World Council and the executive body of the World Council that has, at the end of the day, the real power to decide. They have the power also to appoint the chairman, chairwoman, presiding of the court. But it is not the ICC court. Nevertheless, it's true that probably the role in practice, the role of the ICC court and the role of the Commission on Arbitration and ADR is certainly the most important one. But it's interesting to see, and there is a change. In my time, it was the World Council that decided, had the power, the legislative power. And then it has changed for a very obvious reason. But it's interesting, again, to see that this body has now a system that gives more and more power to rule on the evolution of arbitration. Coming back to one point, I used to teach during 40 years almost contract law. And in contract law, I was repeating that the parties have the right, final right to decide, and it is the agreement that is essential. The general conditions cannot change the contract. Interestingly, it changed here with the expedite procedure. And Damiana a moment ago mentioned the fact that in these now, if you are under 2 million or 3 million, it might be that you will have only one arbitrator, whereas in the clause you could have mentioned 3. I remember in my time, it was long, we had a complaint from a council saying, how do you appoint 3 arbitrators? The case is small, but we have always said we have to comply with the agreement. So it is good to see that this body has now the power to develop general conditions that comes before the contract and before the agreement of the party. I do not say it is wrong, I say it's interesting. And we should also have a look in it. What does it mean concretely? I'm absolutely sure that it is a good solution at the end of the day, but nevertheless, it shows also a drastic changing in the system. And I would like just in passing also to insist on an incredible role played by the ICC generally in the evolution of arbitration. The Commission on Arbitration, the reports are excellent. They are really leading texts that have influenced the evolution, speaking everywhere. Claudia knows that the President goes for every second day to speak somewhere, and Secretariat have also play a role. I will come to it in a moment. So this is an incredible evolution and an incredible role played by the ICC. So far to the function of the role. Now, what about the composition and the structure? The composition, it's a court. Okay, it's a court of now 177, if I'm not mistaken, 177 members. Well, I do not see that the Cour de Cassation could have 177 persons. it's on one side, it shows that what is important is to have diversity, really members coming from everywhere. That's good, and I like it and loved it during the time I was there. On the other side, it is a bit surprising to have a body that is such big and large, and in particular, that if you have a plenary session, you don't know who will be in the plenary session. It is a bit aléatoire, je ne sais pas si ça existe en anglais, to know who will be there. Now it's much easier with the possibility to have remotely, and probably you have more participants than in my time. But in my time, it was really very much Western people who were there because we had time to come to Paris and to develop and to participate to it. So the number has changed. And secondly also, and it was interesting, what Emmanuel said a moment ago, at the beginning there were no lawyers, it was peers that were decided in 10 pages because we have to go forward. And suddenly the lawyers said, wow, God, here is a business, and they monopolized, and we are now here, all I've provided, if I may say so, also, but it's now totally changed, and also in the court. I don't know now the composition of the court, but it will be interesting, and it was interesting in my time to see the changes going from people from diversity, in particular in-house counsel, people really representing company, not necessarily lawyers, but now I think there are more and more lawyers, arbitrators, very renowned arbitrators, but this is also certainly a change in the composition. And what probably, but I see that Claudia doesn't seem to be happy with my way of putting the fingers of some difficulties, in particular because of the evolution and particularly because of the increasing number of cases, there is unavoidably a certain specialization. The role of the Secretariat is clearly growing. The role of the presidency, the 7 vice presidents, certainly. You know now that the court has decided actually to form special committees by languages. Okay, that's no more. That's no more exactly the idea that was at the beginning. We're forming now a special committee, and it is up to the president to make sure that there is still uniformity or harmony in the way it is used by all. So there is an evolution, and I think it is a very interesting evolution. Now, if I speak from the structure, here, there is an interesting body, and why? Because it is an NOG, clearly, and the key is, in fact, the ICC, not the ICC court, but the ICC. Everything lies on the ICC, and the ICC court is nothing else than a body of the ICC. So the legitimacy of the system lies on the business community. That could be good, but nevertheless it's a bit surprising to see that this business community has now so many powers to make rules, power to appoint, power to decide on points. So there is probably, could be, with the time, a risk. And therefore also we see the modification that there is now an executive committee. It was after my departure that it has been decided for very good reason. But this shows also that this is a private system. It is a fully private system functioning and giving all and able to decide on all these points. Now, I come to my conclusion, if I may. First, I'm absolutely convinced of the high quality of arbitration. This being said, I think that there are risks. And the ICC know that. In particular, one of the main risks is certainly the question of the length and the cost. And as a member of the trade union of arbitrators, I would like to insist that we are not the only one responsible for the length and the cost of the arbitration procedure. And this is a side, counsel and experts, this is a side that nobody trying to touch. Poor arbitrators are under pressure, the ICC Secretariat also, but the Council have not so much. And I think this is, and I know that the ICC, Claudia in particular, is aware of, therefore I think the expedite procedure is a good system. There must be also a certain intervention in order to facilitate also as a system. Why not? The ADR is certainly possible. We have to promote, and the ICC has to play this role. Even if when I was the chairman, I received call from some very famous arbitrators telling me that pushing ADR were the way of scier la branche sur laquelle nous nous asseyons. You know this silly story of alarming decrease of revenue and other jokes. But it's not only a joke, it is really necessary and possible to develop new systems. There are good proposals. I'm sure they are, and these would be possible. I'm absolutely in favor of ICC. I believe to ICC. It's an excellent system. Others are good too, certainly excellent too, but this for me is really one I personally prefer and find that it brings a lot to the evolution. But 3 words. First word, legitimacy. Important really to make sure that all these powers that are in the hands of the organs of the ICC are really legitimate. And what does it mean? It means in particular that it must be transparency. And not only transparency for arbitrators, but I think also transparency within the court and the way the court decide and how it is decided. We do not know, I'm really well placed to understand it, that this problem must be also and give a clear view. This is exactly what we are doing and who is in charge of these things. My last point, but this is probably more difficult, I was always in favor of more autonomy for the court. You may know that there were some difficulties at the time. I'm sure that the court is independent. I have no doubt about it, but I think it would be also good and in favor of the image of the ICC court if it could be a bit more autonomous also from a financial point of view. I'm Swiss, but I'm sure that I was too long and that I exceeded the time that was devoted to me. Thank you very much.